Little Demon Child by Vincent Rustyeye. I can't hold this in any longer. It was just a dream when it started, but then it got so real. I have to tell you this, because I hope to prevent you from the same horrid fate. I nearly killed myself. Thank God for my loving wife. I was just a normal guy before all this, 5 foot 8 inches tall, brown hair, and a scruffy-looking beard. I'm not huge, maybe 145 pounds, and I worked at a law firm as an assistant. At the age of 26, I expected to be more than that, but I guess it pays the bills. I try to dress as well as I can, but I can't really afford more than the one grey suit jacket that I wear every day to work. My wife and I live in a small one-bedroom apartment. It suits us fairly well, or it did anyways. After the dream we had to move out of that place, out of the city, and I'm ashamed to admit, I even moved to a different state. Well anyways, one warm night in May, my wife and I crawled into bed, and like every other night, we fought about money. At some point she would turn on the TV, her pretty face would grow sullen and her lips would tighten. "I'm over it, Jack," she'd whisper, shaking her head. Her blonde curls would shake with her. She'd find a show, put the remote down on the bed, and cross her arms. I knew when to quit, and I would roll over and close my eyes. At some point in the night I woke up to footsteps. I opened my eyes and began to slowly sit up, dazed and confused. I swore I saw a shadow, but my eyes were failing me. I moved my feet to the cold, dark oak floor. I was in my blue and black checkered boxers, and probably looked like a fool as I stumbled around, truly shaken by what I thought I was seeing. My eyes began to adjust to the room. That's when I saw it again. A small shadow about the size of a child darting down the hallway outside my bedroom door. It went to the kitchen. I turned around in fear to look for my wife, but she was gone, leaving the sheets undone where she had laid before. "Lucy," I tried to say, but it came out only as a whisper. "Lucy." I tried to find my voice but couldn't. There was a strange sound coming from the kitchen now. It was like sucking sounds, but deep as if it was a black hole. I dared not to look. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel my body beginning to tremble in fear. Anxiety was turning my stomach into a knot. I stumbled slowly down the hallway. It seemed to be much larger than I thought. I felt the grey, flattened carpet beneath my toes. I passed the bathroom. I took a look inside to see if Lucy was in there. She wasn't. I tried to muster another cry. "Lucy!" No, it was useless. I was whispering still. The sucking sound got louder as I approached the open area that held the kitchen to the living room. Looking down, I could see blood everywhere all the way to the bathroom door. I felt like I was going to throw up. I didn't want to look inside the kitchen. I didn't want to see what was making the awful noise. And I wanted to find Lucy. Fear overcame me as the sucking noise stopped. It felt like an eternity that I stood by the kitchen leaning up against a wall, not wanting to turn my head to look inside. Finally, against my better judgment, I turned my head looking inside the kitchen, and to my horror, on the wall between the fridge and the stove, was a massive black hole with teeth to the left and right of it. A giant mouth turned on its side. It began the sucking noise again, and I felt my feet pulling me toward it. A little girl giggled, and as I looked to the living room, grasping for dear life to the wall I was just leaning against, I saw a girl, looking over my wife lying on the floor. In the darkness I could make out that her stomach was ripped open and everything inside was pulled onto the floor. The girl turned her head looking at me. First sweet, but quickly turning sinister. She grinned, a mouth full of sharp teeth, her eyes a pale colour in the darkness. It was unknown what colour they were. "You did this, Jack. Face your crimes." I tried to scream, but nothing came out of my mouth as my fingers slipped and I was pulled into the giant mouth. I woke up in a cold sweat, looking to my side to see the sheet undone. The sun was at least up. I checked the time. It was 6:30 a.m. "Lucy!" I screamed, tossing the covers to the side and running to see the bathroom door closed. I didn't care. I burst open the door, hearing the shower running. My wife, already startled to hear me scream, and now I ripped the shower curtain open and clutched her tightly. She was alive. "Jack, what are you doing? Are you okay?" she asked, puzzled and bewildered. I didn't let her go as hot water poured over my skin and down my back, wetting the black and wet checkered floor beneath me. "I had a terrible dream. I'm just glad it was a dream." I finally let go of her. Her puzzlement turned to a mix of annoyance and flattery, like a child who brings her mother flowers but tracked mud through the house to bring it to her. "Well, can I finish my shower, or did you want to flood the bathroom?" She finally found the words to say. I smiled at her and turned back out the door, closing it behind me. I sat back down on the bed and after a few minutes felt a sense of stupidity enter my brain. "Why you gotta be so stupid, Jack?" I heard a voice say that sounded like my own. "You're a needy little bastard, aren't you? And this dream? You let a dream frighten you like a 5-year-old child." I put my head in my hands, feeling tightness around my chest and feeling of wanting to cry for some reason. Everything began to fill up inside me. The constant arguing. What if my wife had died last night? What if she left me? "Jack?" I felt a warm hand on my back. I looked up to see my wife with a towel wrapped up in her hair and another around her waist. She sat down next to me on the bed. "Are you okay?" I wasn't sure, but I didn't want to frighten her. "It was a dream. You were dead and a weird monster was trying to eat me." "It's nothing, I'm just being stupid." I shook my head and got up away from her kind touches. I could feel her behind me becoming sullen. I knew she wanted me to open up to her more, but I just couldn't. She would think I was stupid or weak and I couldn't let her see that side of me. I walked away and got ready for work. As I was leaving, I heard a soft and kind voice of concern behind me say, "Jack." My hand was on the cold brass doorknob. "What?" I heard myself say in annoyance for some reason. "I'm just worried." "No, it's nothing. Go to work." I felt even more terrible now. I wanted to apologize, but I just left, and on my way into work I felt entirely filthy. This morning, that tender moment, though odd, was beautiful. I felt so open and vulnerable to my wife, like I hadn't in years. But now it was all in ruin because I was being an arse. Never mind that this dream of mine was just a stupid childish dream that I let rule my life, if even for a second. Anyone who's worked at a law office as an assistant knows how horrid the job is. You are always to blame, and you can't make any excuses because if you do, then you're arguing with a lawyer. I don't need to tell you who will win that battle. I found today being especially testy on my sanity. We were working on a case representing a man who was trying to sue Mobil for not telling him he couldn't put diesel in his car. Sounds like the dumbest case in the world, I snorted looking at it. My boss scowled at me. "Why? You don't think there should be signs, Jack? How is a common person supposed to know not to put diesel in their car? Suppose you drove a Mercedes all your life, then you switched to a BMW. How would you know, Jack? Don't be an idiot." If I could afford to have a Mercedes or a BMW, I think I would have the sense to actually put the right gas in it, I thought, but left it be and walked away from the conversation giving a big sigh. On my way home, I stopped at the store to buy flowers for Lucy. When I got to the store, I saw a little girl by the flowers. She wore a tattered white dress and black hair completely unbrushed. Fear filled me. I looked away and then back, and she was gone. I wasn't sure what to do. One half of me wanted to get the flowers, and the other half of me swore at me to run. That was the girl from my dream, I was sure of it, but I knew I wasn't dreaming. I decided it was best to get the flowers and keep my wife happy. I paid for them and walked out of the store. I was shaking and completely unnerved at the thought of some demon child following me around. Then I unlocked my car and got inside. I put the car in reverse and turned to look at the mirror and saw the girl sitting in my back seat. Her eyes were sunken in, but the pale green iris was hard to miss in the ghost-like figure she gave. I slammed the shifter in park and turned around, unsure what to do. She was gone. And so were the flowers. I was in full panic mode, unsure if I should drive. What did I eat that day? Was I poisoned? Maybe I was having a mental breakdown. I got out and walked back into the store and found the cashier I'd bought the flowers from and asked her if I had actually brought the flowers. She looked at me puzzled and shook her head no. No? I yelled. I'm going mad, I said as I stormed out of the store. I could feel the eyes of the entire store staring at me. I ran to my car and drove off hastily and constantly looking in my rearview mirror for the child. I got home and burst through the door. Lucy was on the couch watching TV. Do you have to be so loud? She snapped at me. The flowers, Lucy. A child took them, but I never brought them, I rushed in haste to say. I could catch my breath, but then again I didn't feel like I needed to breathe. My heart was pounding so fast and loud I could hear it in my ears. I saw her face turn from annoyed to true concern. Jack, sit down. She got up and grasped me by the arm. I looked at her and followed her to the couch and sat down. Jack, you're shaking, she cried out. I hadn't noticed, but it was true. I looked at my hand as it vibrated uncontrollably. I put my head in my hands and began to cry. What was happening to me? Why was I seeing this child? Why was I such an asshole? I couldn't bear the crushing blow of my money issues, that horrible job I had, and the world I was now living in. I'm going mad, Lucy. I'm finally snapping. I heard her begin to cry as her hands touched my arm. Jack, you're going to be okay. Please tell me what's going on. I lifted my eyes to look into her beautiful blue ones, the ones I fell in love with when I was 20. I put both hands gently on the sides of her face and whispered, I don't know anymore. My hands fell, and I laid my head on her lap, sobbing. She stroked my head, half unsure what else to do, I would guess. After some time, I stopped shaking and looked up at her. I'm sorry. I'm being an idiot. I sat up and felt her hand on my shoulder. Jack, tell me what's going on. I gave a deep sigh and began to tell her about the whole dream and then about the girl and the flowers. She got close to me and took me by the face, kissing my lips softly. And then she put her forehead to mine. I believe you, she said. It utterly broke me. I burst into tears again, glad to hear someone else did. Everything was odd that night. I could tell she was unsure what to do with me, or how to talk to me. When it was time for bed, I slid in and didn't say a word about money. I didn't say a word at all. Eventually, though, my heavy eyelids closed and I fell asleep to the sound of the TV in the background, playing whatever my wife was interested in that night. I woke up to darkness and shook my head violently. No, I yelled. Not tonight, I thought as I forced my eyes closed and I heard the patter of footsteps coming near me. Fear rattled me. What? Do you think I'm stupid enough to think you're sleeping." A cackle came from the girl. I felt her cold chill radiating from her as if she was an open freezer. "You're not real!" I screamed, and found I had a voice. My eyes darted open and I found the girl was straddling me. "Before long, I'm going to have you murder your wife, and then you're going to hang yourself by her intestines in the shower. That's what my father did to my mum. I made him do that." Her hands went to my neck. I grasped at her hair and tried to toss her off the bed. I was angry now. I found my strong resistance. It was inhuman. I turned my head to look at the empty place where my wife was beside me. Now the girl's thumbs pressed into my windpipe. I tried to yell, but I couldn't. She began to press harder, and I could feel her nails digging into my skin. I couldn't breathe, and I thought for sure she was trying to kill me. All of a sudden there was a tearing sound and her cold finger sunk in. I choked and tried to pull her off, but I couldn't. Finally I got desperate and found the girl's eyes with my hands and began to press in, trying to cause some type of pain. Nothing seemed to hurt her. Then I woke up. I grasped my neck and turned over in the darkness to see my wife. I was fine. My wife was alive and the girl seemed gone. Honestly, I wasn't sure anymore. I began to put the pieces together. My last dream now made some sense. The blood trail to the bathroom, my wife on the floor with her innards all over it. Most of all, the voice being gone, my windpipe being crushed. The better question was, who was this girl, and why did she all of a sudden want to haunt me? I got up, determined to solve the problem. I found my laptop bag and unzipped it, grabbing the computer and placing it on my coffee table. Blue light cascaded around the dark room as the sound of the computer fan broke the silence. I began searching the history of my apartment first, then the crime scene, but I found nothing that seemed even remotely related. Annoyed, I finally searched "Demon Girl Trying to Get Me to Kill My Wife." One blog came up and began to talk about a girl with black hair and pale green eyes trying to get a man to kill his wife. Except this man was truly insane. He actually did it. He wrote about how and why. There were no pictures, but he went into graphic detail. It took him 3 days to go from a person like me to completely insane. I wasn't totally shocked until I looked at his blog post. He gave where to find him and said he was going to complete the ritual by hanging himself in the bathroom. The address was my apartment. He signed it off by saying, "May Hilda live forever." I squinted in the darkness as fear surrounded me, and I felt the chill of the girl. I looked up to see her standing there. "Hilda," I hissed at her. "Jack," she laughed. "She won't believe you, because that blog won't be around tomorrow, and there is no crime report, my dear." How? How could this little demon child be haunting me like this? How could she make blog posts or make me go through a line that I never did? "Let me go, Hilda. It's time this game ended." I stood up. She just gave a chuckle. Angrily, I flipped the coffee table, breaking my laptop, and went right for her neck, but found air. Then Lucy turned on a light. "Jack?" she said, worried. "Lucy," I said, shocked, looking at my hands, grasping nothing, then back at her. "We need to see a doctor, Jack. There must be something we can do, medicine or something." She came to me like a worried mother. "There's a man who wrote a blog about my dream. Look." I reached for my laptop and found a shattered screen. My heart sank. I could see she was finding it harder and harder to believe me. "Lucy, please. Hilda wants you to not believe me. She wants me to kill you. She wants me to kill myself with your intestines in the shower." I cried and walked towards her. She backed away. I stood stunned. She and I had fought like cats and dogs, but never had she backed off. Jack, we need to see a doctor. Why don't I call someone so you don't do anything bad? I shook my head. Please don't. I'll lose my job. We won't have any money. I shook and fell to my knees. I used to be such a level-headed person. Now I just feel like a complete and total child, at the mercy of my wife, who was acting much more like my mother and caretaker than a wife. What happened to the tenderness she showed me the night before when she had believed me? Jack, we have to do something, she said, getting down on her knees too. I could now see she was crying again. What do we do? I asked, completely unsure and scared. Pray, I heard her say. I looked at her as if she was crazy for a moment. She had never been religious, and the last time we went to church was on our wedding day. But we both found a dusty Bible we had in a drawer. It was red and had tattered binding on it. I opened it, but I wasn't even sure what I was supposed to do with it or how to pray. I looked at her for guidance. She used to go to church when she was a girl and her parents were religious. When I was a girl and I was scared, my mum used to tell me to read Psalms. We used to read Psalm 23, she said, gingerly turning the pages with gentle hands. I looked up at her eyes and felt warmth radiating inside of me. I love you, I said, and wrapped my arms around her. She seemed a bit shocked, and I must have seemed like an emotional mess. We spoke the psalm a few times before both kneeling and putting our palms together, as she led the prayer, asking for God to send an angel to help us in our time of need. Immediately, the light bulb above us burst into a flame and a screech filled the room. A crack appeared in the wall between the fridge and the stove. Life drained from Lucy's face. I grasped her by the arm and ran for the door to find it locked, but something inside of me gave me complete control again. I kicked the door open as hard as I could, breaking it open, and pulled her with me outside of the building. When we had left, she pulled out her phone and began to call 911. I stopped her as I looked up at our window in the apartment. The light was on. What? She couldn't believe it. No, that's impossible. Now you know I'm not lying. We began to slowly walk back into the building and ascend the stairs. As we got closer, we saw neighbours outside of the door. When they saw us, their bewilderment turned to complete shock. If you two are there, who's been making all the racket in there? I slowly made my way to the door, pushing past the people. Inside, there was silence. The door was completely intact. This wasn't a surprise to me anymore. I began to open the door, and inside found nothing out of place. Well, nothing to show for, I suppose. Time to go home, I said, and looked at Lucy. She walked toward me, and we both went inside, closing the door behind us. We both stared at each other in dismay, but we knew we couldn't stay here anymore. We both went to the bedroom and tried to sleep, but we couldn't. We finally began to talk about plans and how we would have to break our lease, and we didn't know where to stay. A hotel wasn't an option. Jack, we're going to have to do something. We can't just stay here. We have to find a way. I looked outside to see the sun was beginning to rise. Maybe we are just going to have to leave and go to your mother's house, I suggested. I never much liked the woman. She was too religious, always asking me if I was going to start going to church. She told me that she would hate to see me go to hell, and she would remind Lucy that if she didn't repent, she and I would both be thrown into the eternal fires. Now I began to wonder if I wasn't already living in hell with the way I was being tormented. Are you sure? She looked at me square in the eyes. She's going to make us go to church, you know. Maybe that's a good idea, I sighed and sat up in bed. I'm going to quit today, Lucy. You pack everything. Jack, don't leave me here. She grabbed me and pulled me back down. Not like this. Let me come with you. I'll stay in the car and we can both pack. I don't want to be alone with that thing. I could feel her shaking. Okay, we will have to come back for the bigger things. I suppose we will have to keep paying rent too. We will figure it all out, I said. A horrible dread fell over me as I began to think about what would happen. As I said a word, I brought her with me into work. I had no time to draft up a letter of resignation. I only walked to my boss's office and asked him to have a word. Something's come up that big. I'm leaving for Florida tonight and I'm not coming back. I have to resign. I'm sorry, I have no time to argue or debate. I turned to leave and I heard a stern voice call me back. Jack, you can't leave like that. 2 weeks, he spat at me. I can. You know the state law. Besides, even if I wanted to, I couldn't, I hissed back. Fine. Run away from your problems. You always have, and you never take responsibility. I hope you find it in Florida. I turned and left his office, finding my wife outside of the car, pacing. I started to jog towards her. I knew she saw the girl. Did you see her? I said, finding her shaken. And an angel, Jack. She was in the back seat. Then she screamed and I saw beside her was a huge creature. He had her by the neck. I got out of the car and went to run, but I knew you'd be back, so I turned around. And when I did, there was nothing, she explained. All of this was impossible to believe, but given what was happening, I was just glad that she was hallucinating with me. We drove home in haste and tossed all of our clothes into garbage bags. We left some of the food and all of the furniture. As I closed the door on the place, I felt a true sense of dread there. I closed the door and had a sense I wasn't going to be returning. We got in the car, Florida bound to start a new life. Lucy had already called her mother, who was more than ready to begin spouting her dogma at us. Church wasn't so bad. Neither of us ever mentioned a word about the events to her mother. We simply stated that our marriage was not doing well, and we needed a change. We never did go back. I called and broke the lease with our landlord and found a new job working at a much better lawyer's office, and began working on my paralegal status. Things felt good again, and soon we were out of Lucy's mother's house, and on our own again. One night, while Lucy was fast asleep, curiosity got the best of me. I searched, demon girl trying to get me to kill my wife, and I was surprised to find the blog again. I read it, and looked at the date it was posted. It was the day I left the apartment. This was either some sort of strange, awful joke played on me, or it was something more. I still have no clue why any of this happened or how. I don't know who the girl really was or what she wanted with me, but I know the feelings I felt and how broken I wasn't who I was as a man. I was always fairly strong, and now I was again. The demon child had saved my marriage, but something in me felt like if my wife hadn't believed me or cared, I may have done something horrible that night. The only thing I couldn't quite grasp was the mouth in the kitchen. The only thing I could find in my researching was a possible rip in a dimension that could have crossed space and time and caused all of the weird things to happen. I still don't know, but if I ever mention it to Lucy, she tells me never to speak of it. That's why I'm writing this. I'm putting it up on the internet for the world to see, so that if you ever have Hilda visit you, run. Run as fast as you can. She is serious, and she will ruin you. Not everyone has a Lucy to keep Hilda away. I hope if she visits you, that you have the sense to run as far as you can. That was Little Demon Child by Vincent Rustyeye. If you enjoyed this story, you might be interested in another series I narrated by the same writer called My Uncle Worked in an Insane Asylum. Here is a small clip of one of the stories. He was normal like you and I, but when he came back from Vietnam, his mind never left the war. One day he just snapped. He started screaming and killed his entire family. He looked at me and paused. I knew there was more. They found him, Bill.
eating the brains of his child. His baby Bill. I looked wide-eyed at him and said, "What the fuck?" I remember how he talked about worms in the head of his baby. He turned around and looked out the window. War is tragic. He's one of those people we can't help. We can't kill him, so he sits in the hospital, heavily sedated, counting the people he's killed. I'm not sure how he got out, but if he is ever unattended or given a weapon, I don't know what he will do.
That was an excerpt from My Uncle Worked in an Insane Asylum by Vincent Rustyeye. Follow the link on the video or in the description to check out the entire playlist. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit the like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel for more scary stories. Thank you for watching and or listening to this video. I shall be back in the next few weeks with more paranormal stories from Reddit.